Hello there, welcome to this edition of Global Business Africa. In the course of the hour, we'll run through the business news stories you need to know about from the continent and beyond. On to Egypt now. Authorities there are planning to increase spending in the 2021-2022 fiscal year that starts in July. This is part of a broader set of efforts to boost the incomes of households in the country and to cushion them from the slowdown in the economy, of course, triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic. This new spending increases the minimum wage for the public sector employees. It boosts their pensions and civil servant salaries. The monthly minimum wage for civil servants, in fact, will go up by 20%. From Cairo, here's Yasser Hakim with the details.
The newly announced budget reflects the state's policies to deal with the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Economic growth rate is forecast to remain below the pre-COVID target of 5.5%, although total spending is set to rise by 9% year-on-year. Most of it is aimed at boosting social services.
We see a big increase in expenditure in education, the school and university levels, as well as the same increase in spending on the health sector. This goes with President Sisi's pledge in his second term in office to overhaul and upgrade the health and education services in the country with the aim to improve the quality of life for Egyptians.
Expenses will also be geared towards raising salaries and pensions, increasing social welfare programs for the poor, and emergency aid packages for struggling businesses and institutions. The government is not eyeing any tax hikes in the 2021-2022 fiscal year, but it expects revenues to jump by 13%. This is in spite of the significant drop in important sources of income, such as tourism and exports, which have been battered by the pandemic.
Though he announced no tax increase, the government is seeking to improve tax collection management with better trained tax collectors, incentives for taxpayers, and introducing technology to reduce tax evasion. Another important revenue stream will come from investments in several sectors such as real estate, which is picking up quickly and attracting a lot of investors. We have huge mega projects, building new cities, roads, transport, industrial zones, attracting investments in multiple industries, including renewable energy projects and digital transformation.
Numbers show optimism of a recovery from the pandemic next year, with the budget surplus forecast to more than double, pushing deficit down by 1.2% of GDP. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
So let's delve into the outlook, the macroeconomic outlook for Egypt. Professor Allam Ahmed is the director of the Middle Eastern Knowledge Economy Institute. He's joining us now live from London. Thank you for your time this evening, sir. So back in January, the IMF held the view that Egypt's economy would grow by around 2.8% this year. We're coming to the end of the first quarter. Do you think Egypt is on track to grow at that rate, or should we expect a much better outcome?
Thank you for inviting me. I think let's put this into real perspective and a global perspective. The COVID-19 pandemic is an uncharted, if you like, economic model for the whole world. So everything we taught or we studied in economic cannot be applied here. IMF predictions, normally we use them for macroeconomic policy, for future planning, but really during the last 1 year and for the next 1 year, I have always warned people, IMF and all other like World Bank and all these institutions, we need to be very careful because we can't really predict what is going to happen tomorrow with unpredicted situation. Last night, we've been told in the UK, we're going to have a significant reduction in the vaccine to vaccinate our own people here in the UK, just in April time. Today morning, we've been told the vaccine is coming from India, there's a problem there. What I'm trying to link this to Egypt, we can't really predict any economy in the entire world, how is it going to progress or to go backward. It is really a matter of how we're going to deal with COVID. COVID is a priority, and each country's economic, social, everything, demography, is really depending on how the country is going to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. Just to conclude this part you're asking me, back in 2020, when the Chancellor of the UK was asked in the Parliament about his prediction about the debit, about the GDP decline, he said one answer. He said, now I am only dealing with NHS, which is our National Health Services, only ask me about saving people's lives. I have an open check for the NHS. I want to save lives. After I save lives, then you can ask me about budget. So my answer to you, I don't think we can predict, although Egyptians have done quite a remarkable work. They have injected the economy by, I think, almost 100 billion Egyptian pound. They try to get people out of their lockdown as much as possible. There is lots of good economic activity.
Right, unfortunately.
Economy, but it's still to be very safe.
All right, Professor Ahmed, just based on what you've said so far, one of the underlying assumptions, at least in the budget for the next fiscal year, the one that starts in July, is that tax revenues will also go up by at least 13%, but there are no tax hikes plans, which at least implies that there will be a lot more economic activity that will generate the extra taxes that the authorities are looking forward to. Do you think that's a feasible proposition?
Taking this in light of what I said earlier, is both ways. Egypt in particular, among the Middle Eastern and North African countries, they have really embarked upon lots of tourist, new resort building. Lots of projects have been going on in Egypt, particularly the new capital administrative city. We hear lots of positive news about Egypt doing lots of buildings. Even in the last 6-8 months, we have seen advertisement of real estate properties and so in Egypt, which is exceptionally not even happening in countries like United Arab Emirates in Dubai. So from that side, it gives a signal there are going to be lots of investment, lots of progress in the economy, which could lead to increase the taxes. But from the other side of the coin, every country is trying to compensate the huge unexpected debt in the budget by raising taxes. But the opposition to high level of taxes is increasing across the whole world. In the UK, for example, we have the same issue here. When the chancellor said the only way I have to recover is to raise taxes, he received lots of opposition to that. So the answer is yes, it's possible, but I don't think any economic advisor will wisely advise the government, macroeconomic policy apparatus, to increase the taxes, because we really need to recover. Every country is going to go through a stage of rebuilding. Rebuilding means you need lots of money for development, for schools, for kids, for poor families. Egypt, the prospects is good, but I think if there is increase in taxes or in tax revenue, I would expect it not to be that significant, but it will be marginally, any marginal increase in the tax revenue, I think is a positive sign.
Okay, one last question for you, sir. So unemployment rates in Egypt did fall in the third quarter of the year, just over 7%. And the reason I'm framing this in a continental sense is because we're looking at economies like Nigeria, unemployment at record levels there, 33.3%. South Africa, unemployment has also gone up as well. In East Africa, Kenya, unemployment also went up. But in Egypt, it's the opposite trend that we're seeing. How did that happen?
Very good question, Andre. I think this is a very good point. I think in Sudan, for example, the IMF expected 22% unemployment. Yes, in the UK, we lost millions of people. How Egypt did that? There's two lines of resources I have referred to. Some of my colleagues, even the academic professors of economics, they told me Alam is not really that reduced. Others are saying to me, yes, it has reduced, Alam. And the most important here, there are good reasons people can attribute to the reduction in unemployment in Egypt. The IMF expected it to be 8.3 or 8.6. Egypt declared by their ministers, which we have to believe that figure, as 7.19, which is even lower than the IMF expectations. So there are lots of reasons. There's lots of projects in this administrative capital. There is lots of money being put into new resorts, building, lots of projects. The government itself injected quite a lot of money, as I said earlier, 100.
Right,
some SMEs.
We've certainly lost that signal to Professor Allam Ahmed there in London.